The Nintendo Switch 2 situation with game carts and just games in general has just got crazier because there seems to be a number of confusing points that are being brought up based off of different things that are happening online. And I did an explanation video not too long ago. If you want to check that out, I'll have a link in the description. But I wanted to re-go over a couple different things here because new information is coming up. But I will preface this by saying with this Nintendo Switch 2 edition of Nintendo Switch 1 games, this is a customer rep support. So if you haven't heard about it, about the Nintendo Switch 2 edition games of Nintendo Switch 1 titles, basically coming with a Nintendo Switch 1 cartridge with a download code in the box to upgrade the game, which some people felt was different or potentially lied from what Nintendo said before. But we're going to get down into what was being said in addition to the actual box itself and read from there, and then we can kind of make a determining factor on what's happening. We're also going to go over a number of information and bits that people have missed about Nintendo Switch enhancements in terms of games, in addition to free enhancements as well, or free updates too, plus the situation that's going down with the game key cards, because there is a lot of people who don't quite understand it, even though it's not necessarily a difficult topic or a difficult thing. But I do want to break down all of this and kind of go over it because things have gotten crazy. So let's start off with the Nintendo UK support rep. So shout outs to Wario64 and Does It Play. So Does It Play initially put up this saying, according to Nintendo's own support, the Nintendo Switch 2 enhanced editions were false advertising during the direct. After trying to nail down for an answer, they confirmed to one of our followers, it's just Switch 1 cards with a code for an upgrade. No reason to buy these then. So essentially what he's trying to say there is that during the Nintendo Direct, they didn't disclose that it was going to be an upgrade code with the Nintendo Switch 2 edition games in terms of physical stuff. I don't think it was false advertising. I'm not going to go that far, or lying overall, because I did watch the Direct and I don't get that impression based off of what I'm reading here or what I saw. But like I said, we are going to go over it. Now, Wario64 quote tweeted this and says, according to a Nintendo UK support rep, and kind of goes over that. Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, Kirby and the Forgotten Land, Metroid Prime 4 contain a download code for the upgrade pack, along with the Switch 1 version cart of the game. So he also adds that customer support can sometimes give incorrect info, so hoping this is inaccurate since the fine print on the boxes do not mention download required. And it's weird they would be codes when Nintendo is pivoting to game key carts instead of download codes of retail games. They also said that the game key cards are different, but he's just highlighting what's happening there, which we will get into that. So I do want to talk about that just a little bit, because if you read the fine print on the box, it says includes the Nintendo Switch game and the Nintendo Switch 2 edition upgrade pack. That right there can be interpreted in many different ways. Some can interpret it as, okay, it includes the Nintendo Switch game. They didn't say Switch 2, there's Switch game, and then a upgrade pack. Now, if you continue reading on here, it says upgrade pack also available separately. For more details, visit this place right here, support and all that, and then it tells you a bit more. So right there, if it says upgrade pack also available separately, some could interpret that as, oh, it's a code because it's updated separately. It's not actually in or digital license because they separate it by saying Nintendo Switch game and Nintendo Switch 2 edition upgrade pack. But like Wario64 says here, the fact that they didn't state that a download was required was something that people felt misleading advertising overall. So I do want to talk about that because I do think it's interesting overall when it comes down to all of this. Now, if this is true or if this is correct, yeah, there's not really too much reason. If you already have the game on Switch 1, you can just buy the upgrade, right? You can just buy the upgrade and it's fine. If you don't have the game on the Nintendo Switch 1 already, if you want, you can buy this. You can essentially buy this. So it's not really too much anything outside of, oh man, I thought that there was going to be the full upgraded game on the Nintendo Switch 2 cartridge, but that is not the case with the Nintendo Switch 2 editions of Nintendo Switch 1 titles. So keep that in mind overall, and definitely as a physical game collector myself, I absolutely would love to have the Nintendo Switch 2 editions on cartridge for later collection and all of that. I still have all of these games on the Nintendo Switch 1, so I'd probably just do the upgrade path and not rebuy them for the full amount that they're listed. But once again, it would be nice to actually have those Nintendo Switch 2 editions of Switch 1 games complete on cart as a collector and everything. But remember, it's not 100% confirmed yet at this point. Once again, customer support reps can be wrong on many different things, but that's kind of the crazy situation that's happening right now. But what's even crazier is for all of those who aren't subscribed to the channel to make sure that you do subscribe, because you won't want to miss out on all the great Nintendo Switch 2 content and videos and live streams and everything that we have planned. It's been crazy here, and it's going to get even better. So hit that like button and click that notification bell to get my vids as soon as they drop, and make sure you drop down below what game you're most excited to play on the Nintendo Switch 2 if you plan on picking one up. I also wanted to just briefly get into the Nintendo Switch 2 editions of games and clearing up some of the confusion there with those games compared to the free games that we're going to talk about as well with updates. So with these Nintendo Switch 2 editions of these Switch 1 games, you are going to get substantial more content in some of them compared to the others. Just briefly going down with it, if you look at a game like the Kirby and the Star Cross World, that's going to get you some extra DLC in addition to the 60 frames and the better graphics and everything. Same goes for the Jamboree TV with Super Mario Party Jamboree, the extra additions with the camera updates and the different types of voice command games and the stuff that's only possible on the Nintendo Switch 2. So you're paying a bit more for that. It's essentially the base game of $60, the $10 for the upgrade, and $10 for the extra DLC on top of that, which gets the $80 that some people are saying, and once again, necessarily don't like that overall, but I do already have those games, so if I really want these Switch 2 editions of them, I can just do the upgrades for the $20 or whatever they decide to price them when we get an official confirmation. So I can understand where there's some people that are upset about that, but that's essentially how it's priced overall. There are going to be some ones that are cheaper, so you have stuff like Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, that's going to be a nice graphics update and a couple few features here and there, in addition to a huge frame rate boost overall, but it's not going to be extra big content added on like Kirby or like the Jamboree TV. And then The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, along with Pokemon Legends ZA, those are just going to be some nice updates to the graphics resolution and frame rate, while Zelda does have some added bonuses in with the Zelda notes and like the Korok tracker, of course the frame rate, the resolution, and a few other quality of life features like a QR code share for different types of creations in The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, which would be good for me because I suck at creating stuff and building, so I can download somebody who's incredible at that and use their creations in my games. So that's essentially the Nintendo Switch 2 editions of games, and broken down and explained why the prices are that they are. But remember, if you have the NSO Plus expansion pack, you will be able to get the Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild Nintendo Switch 2 upgrades for no additional cost on that. So just keep that in mind. Once again, would have been nice if the prices would have been a bit lower because it is an older game with Breath of the Wild or with Kirby or some of these other ones. So hopefully everybody's clear on that overall with the differences with it. I think it's also important to note that Nintendo's big games built for the Nintendo Switch 2 that aren't ports of Switch 1 games or enhancements, those games are fully on the cart with no extra download or download code or upgrade path or anything, because they're built for the Nintendo Switch 2. So for example, Donkey Kong Bonanza, that game is about 10 gigabytes digital wise, so the physical game is on a 16 gigabyte cart. Mario Kart World, that is fully on cart, that is about 20 something gigabytes, so that's on a 32 gigabyte cart. And going forward in the future, games like Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment will probably be on a cart. In addition to the next big Zelda and other titles, Nintendo will pay the amount for those carts when it comes to their big first party games, just like they did with the Nintendo Switch 1 going forward. This is also very important what we're going to talk about, because I did see once again people online saying that there are no free updates at all for Nintendo Switch 1 games on Nintendo Switch 2, and that's not the case. There are a number of updates on here, and this is kind of the crazy thing that's happening. People aren't even really talking about this online on Twitter, but there will be free updates for select Nintendo Switch games. So these free updates will improve playability on the Nintendo Switch 2 system and will be released for select Nintendo Switch games. And you can connect your Nintendo Switch 2 to the internet. You can download a free update that may improve the performance or add support features for like game share, for example. So that's pretty cool. You can game share ARMS, you can game share something else, or game share one of these other games to somebody else that has the Nintendo Switch right by you. The contents of these free updates will differ depending on the title, but this is something that, once again, people were trying to say that Nintendo's not doing free updates, that they're just charging for updates, and that's not true. So the games listed here are going to be ARMS, Captain Toad Treasure Tracker, Super Mario Odyssey, Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury, Clubhouse Games 51 Worldwide Classics, Game Builder Garage, New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe, Big Brain Academy, Brain vs. Brain, and probably the best games on this list are the ones that I'm going to go over, and I saved them for last, and that is The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening and The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, along with another game that we're going to get into. But these two titles have performance problems on the Nintendo Switch 1 because of the huge open worlds and the scrolling screen. Something happens to where it just can't play smoothly all the time. Getting this patched up and at 60, especially for Echoes of Wisdom, where you're doing all this different magic and, you know, forming stuff, and there's hitches in the overworld. It's such a brilliant and beautiful game. With the patch to 60 frames to get it locked in there, I think it's going to make the game even better, like way better, especially for these two games. But Echoes of Wisdom is the game that I'm very excited for. Link's Awakening, already played, it's been a while, I'm not going to go back to that, but Echoes of Wisdom, I absolutely am with this update here. Now, the other one that's a really big one here, and obviously there's a lot of conversation about this, is Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. This is something that obviously we needed a while ago. Now, I don't think it would be reasonable to say that they're going to get the game to 60 frames per second on the Nintendo Switch 1, considering the size of its open world, but they definitely should have done a better job with the game at launch. And they did have a number of patches to help fix the glitches and some of the bugs and all of that, but it never really got that performance update that it should have got on Switch 1 to at least make it a bit better. However, the Nintendo Switch 2, it seems like they are going to be patching this game up, and I think that would be really, really good. This game needs it more than any other game on this list. Like, these two games, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, absolutely need this update. So that's definitely a good thing, and I'm looking forward to going back and playing Pokemon Scarlet now. And I played Violet and beat that one, and I thought it was great, but I stopped playing the single player stuff just because anytime you get into water or anywhere like that, it just kind of chugs. Some places run okay, but multiplayer is fine, that runs great overall, or stable more like it. But there is a problem in the open world because of the size of the open world. So yeah, this is definitely good news when it comes to these free updates. I'm hoping in the future we see Xenoblade Chronicles 1, we see Xenoblade Chronicles 2, Xenoblade Chronicles 3, and all the DLCs. That would be a good update. Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition, getting that running at 60 frames per second. One of the reasons why I am delaying and just doing a ton of side quests and trying to go through and take my time with Xenoblade Chronicles X is because I want there to be an update for the game so it can run at the 60, because there was a hidden 60 frames per second mode in the code for the game on Switch. So it does seem like they are working on that, or it will come in the future. So definitely, I would love to see more updates, and it does look like Nintendo's going to add more games to this list. Now, the next thing that we're going to go over is kind of the confusion that was happening with the Nintendo Switch game key cards. There's a lot of confusion going on about these game key cards, people raging online about them one way or another, and it's gotten pretty crazy overall. So let's talk about the game key cards and what they actually are. I'm going to go over what Nintendo says on their support site, then also go into the pros and cons of the game key cards. So game key cards are different from regular game cards because they don't contain the full game data. Instead, the game key card is your key, that's in quotation, to downloading the full game to your console via the internet. After it's downloaded, you can play the game by inserting the game key card into your console and starting it up as normal. Now, here is what the game key card packaging looks like. It includes this information, and the information on there says full game download via the internet is required. See back for details. And it says to download the game, an internet connection and enough free space in your Nintendo Switch 2 system memory or micro SD express card are required. How it works, you take the game key card, which is essentially an empty shell type of Nintendo Switch cartridge. It doesn't have much data on there. It's just a key of data to download it. So you insert that into your Nintendo Switch 2. The game itself isn't included on the game key card, so you'll have to download it before you can play. When you insert the game key card, further instructions will be displayed on the home menu. Please follow those instructions and download the game. Then you can play the game after it's done downloading. Now, some people have asked, why have they done this? This is terrible. They should all be on cartridge. And I 1000% agree. I do think that game key cards are not ideal. What we would love is to have every single game, every single physical game be on a cart. Every single one, if it was on the cart and plays off the cart, and even if you have to download a patch or whatever, that's not as bad because you don't have to download the whole game, and you can essentially have that on there. Now remember, With these game key cards though, you can trade and sell them and all of that, so it does beat out a code in a box, and it's essentially very similar to those download required cartridge games, right, that we used to get on the Nintendo Switch 1, where it's like 8 gigabytes and you have to download like 26. This just gets rid of that BS and says, hey look, if it's a code in a box or if it's one of these half cartridge games, it essentially just has to be a game key card. It's going to be all or nothing when it comes to these games. So the bigger titles and even maybe some of the smaller titles are going to have this game key card stuff. Now, the reason why too is because the Switch 2 cartridges are pricey. I would love for every single developer to put their games on the actual cartridges, but every single developer is not going to be like Cyberpunk, which is probably getting subsidized by Nintendo to get that 64 gigabyte cart. That is not a cheap game. It's super expensive for those cartridges. They never even figured it out on Switch 1 where the file sizes were lower. There's no way that they're going to have that figured out on the Nintendo Switch 2 with those cartridges. So you are going to see some developers actually create and put out a game on an actual cartridge, and it might be 32 or 64 because they feel like they're going to sell enough copies for it to be worth their time. But there's going to be other developers that feel, no, it's not worth us and the production cost. We don't mind having the game digitally, but if we're going to do a physical game, or if we want to have a retail presence, it's going to be this. And there's pros and cons on both sides with this. Obviously, the cons are you don't actually get the full game on the cartridge. That's not good because you have to use the internet in order to download it. But the pros are that game key card can be sold to someone else, can be lent out because you need that card. It's not tied to your Nintendo Switch Online account or your Nintendo account. It's that card. It's that card right there. So you can borrow it to somebody and they can also play as long as they have that game key card. So that's one thing that people have to realize and understand. Some people felt that it's just like a one-time use or it's tied to your account. It's not. It's essentially a digital game that operates as a physical game, and that's really the start and stop of it. And me personally, like I said, there's pros and cons overall. I do like the fact that you can buy and sell and all that, and it does beat out a code in a box, but it's just about equal to the cartridge games that you'd have to download, you know, apart online, right? Now they just got rid of it, so it's essentially like an adjacent move for the most part overall, but it makes it a bit simpler, so the code in the box thing isn't necessarily happening anymore with specific Nintendo Switch 2 games. Specific Nintendo Switch 2 games. You still might get a code in the box for an upgrade, but it comes with an actual cartridge with the full game on that cartridge. So keep that in mind as well going forward. I know it's a little bit weird at times, but they essentially created a new way of doing the nonsense that they did before, but it's like a kind of like an all or nothing type of thing this time around. So that's that. So what do you guys think overall? I went over the craziness that's going down with game cards and the games and everything. Hopefully I explained everything well enough for you. If you have any questions, I'll do my best to answer them. But remember guys, we're probably going to get more information as time goes on, but essentially that is the nitty-gritty of everything that we can confirm at this point. So what do you guys think about everything that we talked about here? Let me know in the comment section below. All right guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and check out my other Nintendo Switch RPG content and more right here on screen. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you guys for the next one. Peace.